Hey, everybody, thanks so much for joining in. Now that we're a couple minutes in here, we can go over some quick introductions. If you've joined a Hudu webinar before, you've probably seen my face before. My name's Daniel. I am a account manager with Hudu and typically handle a lot of the webinar side of things as well. Partner webinars, internal, all of that. And so super excited to be kicking this one off today. And join with me, I have Brad here. Brad, if you want to introduce yourself and a little bit about you.
Hey, so my name's Brad McAllister. I am a engineer here at Hudu, the lead engineer responsible for Hudu Radar, and definitely looking forward to showing it off today.
Yeah, thanks, Brad. Yeah, super excited for this webinar. We love to do these interactive webinars where especially Hudu Radar kind of being a brand new tool to Hudu, and we just really wanted to do this to give everybody some training, a chance to ask the lead developer here, Brad, some questions on Radar. And so we're going to go ahead and do that here in a sec. I first kind of just wanted to talk about why Hudu Radar kind of came into development and really the benefits that Hudu Radar can bring to your MSP or your company. First off, just seamlessly integrating it with your Hudu core application makes your assets a lot more powerful. Obviously, probably one of the biggest things that we get with documentation, and that I'm sure your team will talk about documentation all the time, is okay, how do I make this a little less manual, right? I don't want to spend the hours of adding in documentation manually inside of my Hudu. I want to just be able to automate as much as possible. And so that's really where Hudu Radar kind of came into play, allowing you to save time from manually entering in your network device information and your warranty expiration tracking. And so Brad's going to go through a lot of that today, kind of talk about the full setup, both on the front end as well as the application side of things. And as with anything with Hudu, we really try to let the product speak for itself. And so hopefully, once you see what Brad has to show today, you'll see kind of the real benefit and how you could really apply Hudu to your MSP or your company. So without further ado, Brad, I'm just going to let you kind of take it away here and walk through some things. Right beforehand, sorry, forgot to mention, as I always do, we have our Q&A open as well as chat. As always, if you've joined a Hoodoo webinar before, we are going to prioritize Q&A. So if you do have questions, feel free to pop them in there. Use the chat to interact with each other and with us and everything by all means. But dedicated questions, we will be surfacing the Q&A for those as the priority. We will have basically the way that this is intended to go is Brad's going to go ahead and give a demo of Radar, and then the rest of our time today will be dedicated for Q&A. So we will most definitely, try to get to everybody's questions today, and feel free to pop them in there. I can assure you we will get to them after the demo here. And now, Brad, after I added in that little disclaimer, I'll go ahead and let you kind of take things from here.
Perfect, thank you. Let me go ahead and share my screen, and we'll go ahead and get started. All right, perfect. So yeah, as Dan said, Hudu Radar is aiming to automate the IPAM section of Hudu. Hudu Radar is going to be an external application to Hudu. It's going to be an additional application to Hudu, priced at $10 per client per month. It's client based. And you would deploy it with inside of one of your clients with inside of Hudu to automate that IPAM section. The first part to get started with Hudu Radar is going to be enabling it with inside of your Hudu HQ. You'll need to have at least one license as it's per client, so one license for a company, in order to be able to see Hudu Radar with inside of your Hudu application. To get started, you'll come to admin and go to external apps, and then Hudu Radar will be present as long as you have that one license and your billing is active. And then you'll go ahead and enable Hudu Radar. It's already enabled. And then you'll press download to download the executable or to download the installer, which we offer as a MSI or also an executable. That will go ahead and download, and it's just a standard installer, nothing special there. But there are a few additional configuration options with inside of the Hudu admin section for Hudu Radar. The first is going to be deployment. So if you wanted to, we do offer the ability to deploy Hudu Radar out completely silently and start running scans silently and populating your Hudu silently. So there's no need to get into the Hudu Radar GUI desktop application in order to or in order to start the scanning process. So this is useful in cases like RMM, where you're deploying it out on a computer where you might not have access to it. It's just passing basically a setup code to the installer and then scripting that install, and everything will start for you automatically. So if that sounds like something you'd be interested in, just check that button. It doesn't impact if you want to deploy out via the GUI. Then there are device requirements. Device requirements are basically saying, what does Hudu Radar need to discover about a device in order to create an asset with inside of Hudu for that device. Hudu Radar will discover or try to discover a bunch of different data points for all devices that are on your network. And as long as it meets the requirements here or with inside of the instance of Hudu Radar, because these are your global defaults, you can also set defaults for or device requirements for a instance of Hudu Radar and installation of it. As long as it meets those requirements, then it will go ahead and create an asset with inside of Hudu as long as the asset layout mapping is complete. That brings me to the next part, which is the asset layout mapping. These are all the device types that we have with inside of Hudu Radar, and we have them mapping to a particular asset layout. So Hudu Radar knows to create an asset with inside of that asset layout. So workstations is going to our workstations asset layout, laptop is going to laptops, printers to printers, and so on. If you didn't want to create an asset for a particular device type, you would go ahead and just not map it here, and Hudu Radar would know not to put it inside of Hudu. And then that brings me to the next point, which is going to be the additional setup of the asset layouts with inside of Hudu admin. So going back to admin, we can click into asset layouts. And if I find a layout, that is connected to Hudu Radar, it will display this banner up at the top and also display my fields. If I click into a field here, if it is a text or a rich text field, there'll be an option for the Hudu Radar data point where you can select which data point you want Hudu Radar to auto-populate this asset field with. So serial number will be populated with the serial number that Hudu Radar discovers. As long as this device meets the requirements, it will create an asset as expected. The other type is going to be date being supported. If a field is a date and add to expirations is checked, there will be another option for use Hudu Radar to create a warranty expiration if vendor and serial number are found. So if Hudu Radar will find a vendor and a serial number, it will go ahead and reach out to find the warranty expiration and create an expiration for you automatically with inside of your Hudu. I'll go ahead and just cancel this for now. And that pretty much completes the setup for the admin section with inside of Hudu. It is a little bit, there is a little bit of a setup process initially, but once you do it once, it doesn't realistically change that much. So with that said, we'll jump into the Hudu Radar app after it's been downloaded and deployed onto the computer. We're deploying it via the GUI, the regular installer, because the silent installer wouldn't have anything to show here. So we'll go through the configuration of the app. Hudu Radar is supported on Windows environments right now, and it's supported with Windows Server 2016 and also, it's supported Windows Server 2016 and up and Windows 10 and up. Right now, it is fully Windows, but we do have plans to add additional OSs such as Mac and Linux to our supported OSs. So we've downloaded the application and I've opened it up inside of my desktop. And the first thing that you'll see is a setup code or a prompt to enter in a setup code. The setup code is going to also come from within inside of Hudu, and that's going to be within inside of the IPAM section of a company that you want to set up Hudu Radar for. So we'll grab the Hudu Radar code here. It's going to give me a code that's specific to this company and valid for 5 minutes. I'll go ahead and copy this code, come back to Hudu Radar, and paste it in. Now, if you were deploying out via RMM and scripting the install, this would be the same code that you would pass to the installer. And like I said, that code is going to be what's going to authenticate Radar and also be able to start that scanning process for you automatically. I'll go ahead and hit next, and it's going to ask me which adapter I want to scan. So right now we have one adapter on our machine, and it's our Wi-Fi adapter with inside of this network. So I'll go ahead and hit next. If there were additional adapters on this machine, then you could also select them here. This selection you can change later on in the app as well. It's not a final thing. And also Hudu Radar will be able to discover additional networks based off of routers or switches. And if those are present, we can also start scanning those as well from within inside of Hudu Radar. But for now, we'll just have the one adapter and hit next. When we hit next, we'll launch the web application to authenticate Hudu Radar as it's authenticated through the browser, and it will redirect us back to Hudu Radar. Once we're redirected, you'll see that we'll have a dialog to set our device requirements for this particular instance of Hudu Radar. So it's pulling in our defaults here, but if I wanted to modify something for this particular instance, for this deployment, I could do that here as well and just hit save. And then there are credentials with inside of Hudu Radar. You can add WMI or CIM or SNMP credentials into Hudu Radar. You add them by selecting Add Credential and then selecting the credential type. We support SNMP v1, v2, and v3, and these credentials are not synced back to Hudu, so they're kept locally stored to Hudu Radar. I'll go ahead and cancel and not enter any credentials right now and just close out this dialog box. In the background, while you're doing that initial setup, Hudu Radar will do its first scan of the network. And this is going to be a quick inventory scan of the network to basically get all of the devices that are up on the network currently. I'll go ahead and hit send to Hudu. And that's going to create the network that we've discovered or that we've connected the 192.168.50.0/24 network inside of Hudu IPAM. And it's going to start doing a detailed scan on all of these devices that we've determined are up on the network. This demo application does complete the scan very quickly, but in a real deployment, the scans can take pretty much anywhere from 1 minute to up to 5 or 7 or so minutes, really depending on the size of the network. This is a smaller network, so it's a little bit faster. And once that initial scan completes, there will be a dialog box that opens telling you what the state of the devices are. So we have device has been sent to Hudu with a green checkbox, and then device does not meet minimum device requirements, and it will remain in Hudu Radar, meaning that it has not been sent to Hudu. And then device unable to be sent to Hudu, that's if there was an error or something. Go ahead and hit close, and you can see our list of populated devices here, discovered devices. And also, if we've discovered any additional networks, they would be populated with inside of the list as well. So we've discovered the .51 network as well. There's multiple devices here. Some have been sent to Hudu and some have been not. You can go ahead and filter devices by in Hudu, hit apply, and that will show just the devices that are in Hudu. And then if you wanted to do not in Hudu, you would do the same as well. Go ahead and clear the filters and we'll pull up this device here. So this device has been synced with Hudu, and if it has, then it will go ahead and create a link to Hudu with inside of the details section of the devices, and also display the device information that it has discovered. So we see that it's a laptop. We can see the serial number, CPUs, disk, model, all of those device types that we have predetermined or that we are looking for are displayed with inside of this details section. Since this device has been sent to Hudu, it is created with inside of the IPAM section of Hudu, and then also created as an asset and assigned to that asset. And here are all the details created with inside of Hudu. If a device was not created inside of Hudu because of a missing device requirement, such as this information needed for a domain, then we can go ahead and enter this in manually if we happen to know it off of the top of our head. So I'll go ahead and hit test, or I'll go ahead and enter in tests. And now because this device meets the requirements, it has that missing domain, then this device is created with inside of Hudu, and a asset is created for that device with inside of Hudu. If it is a discovered network, such as this .51 network, and we wanted to go ahead and scan that network or start scanning it, we can do so in two different places. I'll show you first with inside of Hudu Radar, and then later with inside of the Hudu application. To go ahead and scan this network, you pull up settings, go to networks, and then we see we have an unscanned network of this .51, and you would go ahead and hit add to scans, and then it would start scanning that network. And then another feature of Hudu Radar is if you wanted to see the full scan data for a device, maybe there's a missing data point that you know should be coming over in something like SNMP, then you can hit view full scan, and that will show all of the scan types, and it will show all of the data for that scan that we have gotten. So this is useful in a case where Hudu Radar did not pick out something correctly, and you can then view it and view the scan types that we are currently scanning with. I'll go ahead and close out of Hudu Radar. And when I close out of Hudu Radar is deployed with a Windows service. So that service will go ahead and continue the scans in the background. Hudu Radar is scanning on a point in time scan system. So we are scanning every 35 minutes to get the current state of the network every 35 minutes. And without the application running, then that service will go ahead and pick up those scans and run those scans in the background on your machine. And then finally, another feature of Hudu Radar with inside of Core is going to be the map that Hudu Radar creates. The map is a feature that is specific to Hudu Radar with inside of Hudu, and it's going to physically map the devices on the network based off of where they're plugged into switches on that network. So we have this core switch here, which is on VLAN 1, and we can see how how our devices that are plugged into that switch are broken out, with our router being in port 1, our access point being in port 3, and our workstation being in port 5. The router is the owner of this network, so that's why this network is placed underneath this router, and the remaining devices on the network that we don't have enough data for are going to be placed under that network. And then, like I said, there's another way to get the scan running on an unscanned network, and that's going to be, well, actually, there's two different ways with inside of Core. The first is going to be from within inside of the map, and that's going to be by clicking onto the network and then hitting add to scans to add that scan to Hudu. And on the next scan, Hudu Radar will start to pick that up. And then also, if you wanted to add a network that Hudu Radar did not discover, let's say you have a site-to-site VPN that is going to be the device that Hudu Radar is currently running on is not going to be able to discover that network because it's not available anywhere to be discovered. We can come into a network that is within inside of Hudu and go ahead and hit connect to radar. And then on the next scan, Hudu Radar will pick up that network and start scanning on that network. And finally, you've kind of seen this with the networks, but we do also offer that side panel for the devices with inside of the map. So if the device has been sent to Hudu, I can go ahead and click onto that device, and there will be a side panel showing the asset for that with the assets information for that device. And I can open the asset to go back to that view of the complete asset. A note about existing assets with inside of Hudu. If you have a existing asset from an integration, Then Hudu Radar will look to match on the primary serial number, the primary MAC address, and then the name. If there is a asset with any sort of matching already existing inside of Hudu, Hudu Radar will not create a duplicate asset. It will match on that existing asset and update the fields of that asset. We place the device information with inside of the asset layout fields rather than a asset card as with the integrations. So the data will be added to that asset rather than overwriting. But I believe that is about it for the Hudu Radar demo.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Brad. That was super cool to see. Very helpful, I feel like, for everybody that's kind of jumping into radar here and in trial and testing things out. So as I mentioned, now obviously we're getting quite a few questions in here. So we'll go ahead and start working through some of those questions, Brad. I'll just kind of throw them your way and you can talk about those things or show some additional stuff off or kind of highlight something you may have already talked about as well, based off of these questions. So first one we have here in the Q&A is there an IMIBot deployment method for silent? Where do the keys come from in those cases?
So we haven't necessarily tested with AnyBot directly. If you're able to script via just like a PowerShell script with MSI exe or just running the MSI or running the executable itself via a script, then you'll be able to deploy it out that way. I apologize, I don't have an exact answer. We have not tested with AnyBot directly.
Next one here we've got question about connection Hudu Radar and on-premise Hudu server. Is this with external access feature of Hudu, or do they need a VPN between Radar client and Hudu server? In other words, I believe this was chat's kind of going. Again, everybody just got a lot coming into the chat here. Great for conversation, but in terms of questions, please use the Q&A for that. Um, But yeah, Brad, it was essentially on basically like, do they need a VPN between Hudu Radar and their on-prem Hudu installation server?
So Hudu Radar needs to be able to access their on-prem Hudu via external endpoints. We make HTTP requests to your Hudu instance. So as long as that is able to happen, it should be able to talk with your Hudu instance.
Perfect. We got one here. It appears that all admin needs to be done from the various jump clients that are running Radar inside a client network and not through a central web console. Asking if they're missing anything with that.
Yeah, so the user would have to be onto the device that they have deployed Hudu Radar to make any sort of configuration changes with inside the Radar application. We are currently working on a centralized version of that, so you can see all of your deployments and make those changes from a web application rather than having to be on the device. So that is a coming feature, and it is a feature that we are prioritizing and currently working on.
Very cool. And I think not necessarily a question on this, but I know we have a lot of questions that are things potentially coming soon. And I know that we kind of wanted to talk about a little bit about, obviously, we talked about this version one of Radar, but I think it would be great to also kind of highlight what the vision for the next kind of phases of Radar are, if you wanted to talk about that here for a sec.
Yeah, definitely. So the three things that I'll mention as upcoming features of Radar, it's going to be, of course, the centralized management as the highest priority. And then once we complete that, we're looking at adding alerting features. And then after that, we'll be looking at adding reporting features.
Awesome. And I will say, everybody, just like how we do for the regular Hoodoo interface and product, We have now a dedicated Hoodoo Radar section on our roadmap. Again, for those of you that submit feature requests and upvote those requests, that can be found at feedback.hoodoo.com, which I am linking in the chat right now for everybody. Again, dedicated Hoodoo Radar section. Please feel free to go in there, upvote new features you want to see. I see a lot of exportable map feature requests here. Somebody go and submit a feature request for that and upvote those requests as they come in. Just like with Hoodoo, that's where, Brad and the rest of our external apps development team is going to be looking to see how to improve the product and what our customers of Radar are really asking for. So please feel free to submit and upvote any feature requests in that area. It definitely does go a long way. Um, Next question here, Brad. Does this pull VoIP phones in? Do we need device passwords to properly pull info in for these type of things?
So yes, it would pull those in as long as they have an IP address on the network. The with passwords, you would Radar can get some device information for a device if you don't have a password for that device, depending on what is available publicly on the network. But adding a password to Radar to the scanning would definitely improve that. Right now, we only support WMI and SNMP or WMI and SNMP passwords. So additional password types, definitely I would recommend making a feature request and we can look at adding those in the future.
Perfect. Next, we've got can you add a subnet to scan manually if the device is not able to discover it? For example, VLAN.
Yeah, so you can add a network that is not discoverable via Hudu by just having that network with inside of your Hudu IPAM section. You would create it there, use an existing one, and as long as it's not already connected to Radar, you'll get that drop down menu, and then you'll select Connect to Radar. And on the next scan, as long as those devices in that network is accessible from the device that Radar is deployed on, then you'll start to see those devices from that network scan.
Perfect. And for this next one, I believe that Jordan answered something similar in the Q&A already, but basically just another question on how do you handle fully remote companies and wanting to gather their information? Do you install agents on each machine? Kind of talk a little bit about that process.
Yeah, so fully remote would be a little bit tough right now. It would probably be a feature request that we would need to take a look at and see how to best deploy that. Because right now, Radar is solely focused on scanning the network that scanning local networks, or networks that are routable via the network setup. So a fully remote deployment would definitely be a little bit tough right now with Radar, and definitely something that we can add to our roadmap to hopefully improve support of that.
Very cool. Next question here is what if one company has two locations that are fully separate from each other? And mostly they're asking about like how does the topology map represent and display that information?
Yeah, so right now Radar is limited to one deployment per client. If you wanted to utilize the map would be there's a little bit of a condition where the map would be updated incorrectly based off of who's updating it. So that's why are saying one deployment of Radar per client. I believe you could get around this by utilizing a sub company with inside of Hudu to go ahead and deploy to that sub company. But as far as one company with multiple instances of Radar, that's something that isn't fully supported right now and something that we are adding with that centralized management.
Perfect. I also just wanted to jump back. I answered a question earlier privately in the chat, but it was a question on do you have to use Radar for all of your companies? The answer to that is no. You get to kind of choose which companies that you set it up for. Each license that you purchase of Radar will equate to one company that you want to set it up for. This really allows you to really only leverage Hudu Radar for the companies that you want slash need it for inside of Hudu. So just wanted to mention that live as well. Next question here is, um, let's see here. We've got not a Windows user. How do we reopen the GUI, the GUI, when we have closed it?
Yeah, so if you have installed via the MSI, right now it's will unfortunately not create a shortcut on your desktop. So to create a desktop shortcut or just open up the application, you would navigate to where you installed it at. It defaults to C program files. And if you go into there, there should be a Hudu Radar folder and there should be a Hudu Radar executable that you would open. If you install via the exe, it will give you an option to create a desktop shortcut.
Yeah, perfect. I see one real quick in the chat. That's a good question. Could you give us the advantages of Radar compared to an integration with, let's say, ConnectWise? So this is a good question and something I kind of talked about earlier as well with the kind of benefits of using Hudu Radar. The first one is that it's directly connected to Hudu and connected to your assets. So you are obviously using the Hudu Radar application in conjunction with the Hudu interface. And so those devices are, part of your core assets. The mapping is done directly to those asset layouts. So just kind of having everything connected in a central location is definitely a big advantage. The other advantage, two really other advantages is one, those automatic warranty lookups, and two, that topology map. That's currently only possible through Hudu Radar. None of our integrations are going to automatically populate that topology map. Brad, anything you want to add to that, or you think I kind of covered everything there off the get-go?
Just some feedback from some of our initial customers is that Hudu Radar is a much cheaper solution than some integrations that are able to populate that IPAM section.
Yeah, that's a very good point as well. And I think another good point is, and if you've been using Hoodoo for a while, you know that we're always improving things. We're very innovative here and we're constantly releasing new features for both main app and now Hoodoo Radar as well. So this is version one, and Brad and the team have a lot of ideas and expansion. And again, those feature requests that you submit are going to be super impactful to allow us to do that as well. So you can definitely expect, more features, functionality on Hudu Radar as well in the future. Brad, next question we got here is, will Hudu Radar allow to tunnel web interface from devices like Domotes, Avik?
So it wouldn't be able to do that right now. That would definitely be a feature request.
Perfect. And then we got, let's see here. Can you revisit how the info from Radar is added to current assets? For example, what happens to the MAC address if an asset in Radar pulls in the MAC address? Do they live side by side?
So if it's a matching MAC address, then it will be a field that would be connected to Radar. And then Radar would be updating that MAC address if it were to ever change. But if it was, that's if the MAC address was present with inside of one of the fields, one of the asset layout fields inside of the asset inside of Hudu. If the MAC address was present in an asset card from an integration, then they would live side by side since Radar will update the field and will not update that card.
And that kind of goes hand in hand with the question here, is the map population through RMM integration on the roadmap? That's a little outside of the Hudu Radar side of things, but the follow-up to that was with both running, we see a lot of duplicate data. So I guess maybe talk a little bit more, I know you have, but about kind of how Hudu Radar, avoids that duplication of information.
Yeah, so radar should be matching on the primary serial number, the primary MAC address, and the name of the asset. If any of those match, it should create or it should start to update that asset rather than create a new one. If you are experiencing some issues with duplication, I would definitely recommend to put in a support ticket and we can take a closer look at it.
Perfect. And I do see a couple of sounds like good feature request stuff here. One, no alerting. As Brad mentioned, that's something that Brad and the external team plans to get into Hudu Radar pretty quickly in a future version here. So definitely be on the lookout for that. Definitely know that that's a big request. Um, Trials possible, yes. I think Jordan mentioned this in the chat at some point, but you can go into your Hoodoo HQ profile, and within Hoodoo HQ, you'll be able to start that radar trial. As soon as that's started, you'll have the Hoodoo radar section populate for you in the external apps of Hoodoo. And then again, here we've got the PowerShell with ImiBot is perfectly fine, but the 5-minute key thing won't work. We would need a static key for the company or some other method of creating a key on the fly. Brad sounds like another feature request here, but I'll let you kind of talk about that a bit as well.
Yeah, that would be a feature request. Unfortunately, right now, there's no way to have that key last for longer than 5 minutes.
And again, this is part of the reason we wanted to do this webinar was so we could have a big group of Hoodoo customers see the Radar application and provide feedback as well. Again, best place to do that, feedback.hoodoo.com. Please submit all these feature requests there. It'll allow Brad and the rest of the team to kind of look through those, see what's being upvoted. Obviously, again, I'll reiterate, if you've been with Hoodoo for a while, as those features start to get upvoted, and we see that there's a big need for this, we're gonna of course make that a priority and kind of do everything we can to get that in the platform as soon as possible. Let's see here. Can this be used as a discovery tool? If so, could you explain how this would work?
As far as a network discovery tool,
I believe so, yes.
yeah, so Hudu Radar is always going to be showing all devices that are currently up on the network. If a device goes offline, on the network that was previously online, Radar will show a notification, but it's only with inside of the application itself. It's part of an alerting feature to get that with inside of Hoodoo. But regardless, Radar will be always showing all devices on the network, so you could use it to discover all of those devices and get the inventory. The thing is that it is, backed by Hoodoo, so you would need to be configuring it for a company with inside of Hoodoo to send all of its data to Hoodoo at some point.
Yeah, and just to reiterate, right, that we got another one in there that says by discovery, I think they mean assessments.
Assessments of the current network.
Yeah, I believe that's what the question more was leaning towards.
Yeah, I got it. So yeah, we've definitely talked about as far as pivoting or not pivoting, but having some sort of assessment feature of the current network with inside of Hoodoo Radar. That is something we've talked about. It's not 100% on our roadmap right now, but it is. There's kind of like or there. No, sorry. It is something that we have talked about, not necessarily on the roadmap, and probably something to get some more feedback regarding in order to build it out in the way that it should be. Right now, Hoodoo Radar is not really positioned to do those kind of assessments and give you a clear indicator of those assessments. It would kind of be here's all of your data and what can you take from that data.
And this goes into, more along the lines of what's planned with the alerting and reporting, I believe, but we got to confirm if a new device shows up on the network, no alert, is there a report that we can be sent? Can we pull this via API?
Yeah, so right now, it would have to be done through the Hoodoo instance. There's no like alert per se that would fire when a new device comes online. It would have to be something that if a new asset is created, I believe there with inside of Hoodoo, you could create some sort of flag or something like that with inside of Hoodoo.
And then we've got what about when a device disappears off the network for X amount of days? For example, we replace a network switch. Do we need to manually remove the old switch or will it fall off after X amount of days?
So it would need to be manually removed right now. There's a deletion button with inside of Hudu Radar with inside the application to go ahead and delete it from Hudu Radar, and you can also choose to delete it with inside of Hudu as well.
Perfect. Thank you, Brad. I appreciate all of these. Obviously, a lot of questions here firing off, so I appreciate the time you're taking to kind of answer all these for everybody. Again, just gonna reiterate, feedback.hudu.com, great place for any and all feature requests. Obviously, this is version 1 of Hudu Radar, and there's a lot of plans for expansion in the near future. We got another one here. Will Hudu Radar provide clear messaging why a device could not be fully discovered, like SNMP credentials failed?
So it would be available with inside of the logs of Hudu Radar. Hudu Radar creates a log file with inside of the computer, and that's where those kind of errors would show up. It's kind of a portion of the centralized management is going to be centralized logs as well, so you'd be able to view those logs with inside of that management portal.
Very good. And yeah, George. So basically alerts can be configured in Hoodoo to trigger on record creation. So we have kind of two areas of this. So we have our alerting feature and then we have our workflows feature. Alerting, you can set up alerts for when records are created, updated, or deleted inside of Hoodoo. So you could 100% set up an alert for when a, new asset is added inside of Hoodoo. Um, and then workflows is a newer feature to Hoodoo as well. That's going to be more along the lines of what Brad mentioned with flags. That's going to allow basically when a new device or new asset is added into Hoodoo, that record will be flagged. You can set up that workflow to flag it for a specific reason. So that way, then your admin, your team can go look into that as those new devices get added. So definitely recommend if you haven't checked out the new workflows feature. That'll help with kind of reviewing those assets and everything that get discovered based off of Hoodoo Radar as well. Any plans to have hardware like a Domotes box?
No plans right now. Definitely something I've thought about internally, but no plans amongst the team right now.
Again, great feature request if that's what you want to see. We are happy for any and all feedback in that area, so feel free to use that public roadmap and let us know what you want to see with Radar. Always going to be super eager to see all of that, and hopefully that feature request board just grows and we can get some of those hammered out for you here. So, we are 45 minutes in. This was scheduled for an hour. I know we've had a couple people drop up, but the majority of our attendance is still here. We have gone through answering all the Q&A questions. Brad and I will go ahead and stick on for a few minutes just in case we do have any other questions come in. Again, happy to, take the time and answer anything today. I do hope, though, now that you've seen Hoodoo Radar, hopefully you do see the real benefit of the Hoodoo Radar application and how you could apply it for your MSP. Again, more automation, the less your techs have to spend manually entering in information into Hoodoo. Um, and that's really the bottom line of why we introduced Hoodoo Radar to Hoodoo is we want you as the MSP to be able to automate as much as possible. And so, Brad, thanks so much for showing that off all today. Matt, glad you think you like what you saw today. Check it out in a trial. That's the best way to really play around with this for yourself. Obviously, you'll have the trial time as you need it and can play around with things, make sure that it's a right fit, and start setting it up for those companies that you would like to. Um, Thanks, guys. Version 1 is looking good and can't wait to see further updates. Love to hear it. Yeah, version 1 definitely looks good, and we definitely have some things planned for the future. Great start and lots of potential. That's always what we like to hear with our features within Hoodoo, um, especially this new Hoodoo Radar add-on. Brad, anything else you want to add as we kind of go ahead and get close to wrapping up today?
No, I think we've covered it all, super helpful on the feedback. Feedback is what we base a lot of our features off of here at Hoodoo. So definitely looking forward to reviewing all the feedback that we've gotten in this meeting. So thank you.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you again, Brad, for hopping on. Always love to get the lead man before the product in front of the camera here and talking about kind of Hoodoo Radar and the future and future versions of the product as well. So super helpful, I think, for everybody. Everybody, if you missed any of this, if you want to send it on to your friends, your family, other MSPs in the industry, we'll be posting this recording in our community of community.hoodoo.com. And so you'll be able to find this here in those areas and can send it on to everybody that you would like to. We'd love for you to just spread the word. And if you're liking Hoodoo Radar, let your friends know, let other MSPs know. It's definitely something that we're super excited about going forward. And Peter, I'm only here for the t-shirt prize draw. Oh, dang. Well, reach out to us about that separately, okay? Thanks so much, everybody, for joining us today. We'll go ahead and wrap up as we don't have any other questions coming in. Great to see all of the familiar faces in the audience, as well as a bunch of new ones today. So hopefully you enjoy the Hoodoo Radar add-on and go test it out in a trial. And we'd love to hear any and all feedback on that feedback.hoodoo.com board. Brad, I'll let you sign off as the lead developer behind Hudu Radar here.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good one.